Mr. Chair, and I want to thank the witnesses, all of you, for being here today. I have to admit I'm a little bit surprised how much discussion we've had about medical transportation today. I thought that would be kind of a more peripheral topic today, and I wanted to focus a couple of my questions with Vice Chief Pratt on exactly that topic. He's very familiar, obviously, with my riding in northern Saskatchewan, as he just referred to some of the rising costs and the challenges. So I'm just going to change it up a little bit to drill into some comments that he made. He talked about the review of the NIHB program and some of that going on. He also talked, Vice Chief, he talked about service providers dropping out at rapid rates, and I know you referred to dental and optometry, but I want to tie that back to travel for a second, because just before all of this study began, I actually had some people reaching out to my office about their concerns about trying to survive in the medical taxi business from northern Saskatchewan. So in the context of the review, you referred to the high costs, some of the, cost of fuel, et cetera, et cetera. In that review, is there any discussion going on in how we ensure that we don't lose those service providers that are providing some of the transport as well? Or is that becoming an issue in Saskatchewan that you're aware of?
All right, thank you, Gary. First of all, it's good to see you virtually, and we haven't connected in person for a while, obviously due to the pandemic. Appreciate that question. Yes, in terms of your questions, yes, there is issues around the medical transportation, particularly for the north. Dialysis treatment is a prime example, Gary, and you're riding, well, the highways, the distance from First Nations communities. They have to drive sometimes 5 hours one way to receive the dialysis treatment in North Battleford, and that's a long way, Prince Albert and Saskatoon. So 5 to 7 hours one way. And of course, when they come off the treatment, they're weak and, they're not well, then they got to drive back 5 to 7 hours again. So it takes a lot out of our elders. So we have access to those treatment facilities closer. But yes, there is an issue in medical transportation, Gary. That's a huge flag in terms of, providing and meeting the needs and the challenges, particularly for our region. And I can't remember your second point, Gary.
That's fine. You know what? I'm going to, just because we're so limited time, I'm going to move on to another one. I'll give you a pass on that one, okay?
Okay,
so
thanks.
The other thing I wanted to talk about a little bit today is mental health and some of the stuff around that. And you and I have had conversations in the past about this, and I just want to drill into a couple things. As you're well aware, one of my first experiences as a member of Parliament back in 2019 was experiencing the declaration of a state of emergency in one of the First Nations in my riding. Shortly after that, there was announcement of some funding, and I was actually privileged to be president in Saskatoon when that was, you and I were there together. And there's little information that I'm able to find on kind of how the department measures or evaluates the performance of these kinds of I don't know if ad hoc investment is the right, but it was something that was a reaction to a situation at the time. I'm just curious if you can shed any light on the impact that funding over 2 years had, how it gets measured, how the money got spent, how many First Nations in Saskatchewan were impacted by that announcement from, I think that was December of 2019, if I'm not mistaken. I think you'd be very familiar with that.
Yeah, thanks, Gary. I'll be real quick with my remarks. I know I'm getting feedback here, but definitely yes, the 2.5 million, and that was in a result of Ochapwace First Nation, Chief Margaret Bear, as well as Chief Ronald Mitswing and Makwasahagan, which is in your riding, Gary, declaring states of emergency. And that happened right during the AGA that year, that December, when they had a number of suicides. And these weren't just young people, these were older men. But right now in Saskatchewan Region Committee members, we are in a full-blown addictions to crystal meth and fentanyl overdoses and a mental health crisis. And it's really bad out here, as I'm sure it is in all the other regions. You're hearing the reports of overdoses. There's an overdose every day. Somebody's dying every day in Saskatchewan, maybe 2 or 3 times a day with an overdose to fentanyl or crystal meth. Plus, and you have that exacerbated by the pandemic and the isolation for 2 years. Of course, addictions have risen up, mental health have risen up. But Gary, that 2.5 million, 2 million flowed directly to, we knew 2 million wasn't enough. It was a drop in the bucket for what we needed in Saskatchewan. So what we didn't want to be the judge and jury like Solomon, dividing which part should go or who should have it. We just decided, break it up. We have our funding formula that we use for SIGA, bust it all up by population, get the money out the doors. And there was some good work that came of that. I'll give you an example. We gave, I think Peter Ballantyne, one of our largest bands, again, in your riding, put on a youth event for 3 or 4 days for their young people because they were experiencing a crisis. A 10-year-old girl killed herself in South End, and it kind of spurred the First Nation, the chief and council, bring their youth together. We were able to take 150,000, which was their allocation out of the 2 million, and put on a 4-day event and bring their youth to Saskatoon and build them up and teach them, coping mechanisms. They did the assist training. They were able to how to talk to one another on how to prevent people taking their own lives. So there were some good outcomes that came out of that. But Gary, committee members, we need more, and not just in Saskatchewan. We have a comprehensive life promotion program ready to go. We just need the funding, and I think we could probably speak the same for all the regions. We are in a full-blown mental health crisis. We need those investments and those resources